This is the SFF Audio Podcast.
This is Jesse.
And I'm Scott.
And I'm Julie.
All right. And who are you, Julie?
Oh, I have a podcast called Forgotten Classics.
Ooh, yeah.
And I read old stories to people.
Fantastic. You just finished up Agatha Christie.
Yeah, The Secret Adversary.
Yes, very nice.
Is that the second or first Hercule Poirot book?
There's no Hercule in it. It's an unusual one because it starts a series that she had of about 5 books that actually go through this couple's life as they age together.
Tommy and Tuppence.
Yeah, Tommy and Tuppence, and they start off as young adventurers because they can't find any jobs after World War I's done, and they fall into this international conspiracy to bring down the British government. Yeah, I know, highly unlikely, but it makes for a thumping good read. So hopefully it made for a thumping good listen. Go ahead.
It's a great title.
It is. Yeah, the whole way through, you're trying to figure out who's the mysterious Mr. Brown, who's everywhere because he blends in. And nobody ever figures it out until he's gone, usually.
He's the one in the top hat.
No, probably a bowler back then.
Bowler, yes, even better.
Yes.
Wow. So what made you decide to start doing that? Start the Forgotten Classics podcast?
Because on my blog, I kept hounding people to read all these obscure goodness books, as Jesse would say, that I couldn't get anyone to read. And I thought about it for about a year because I said, because I need another hobby. And but my husband is so great. He said, go ahead. No big deal. And set me up with all the equipment, did everything. And so I thought if I started reading samples, then maybe people would like it. And there are enough of these books that are in public domain, or I got actually permission from an author's estate to read one. And people have actually liked some of them and gone on to read either by that author, or I just got a note from a truck driver in Hawaii who listens who said, I just finished Agatha Christie's autobiography. It was great. So
that's neat.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. So
cool. Well, you're an excellent reader. I meant to, when I heard you were going to be on the show, I meant to catch up with my Starship Sofa, because you're on Starship Sofa this week, and I did not get it done. But you read a David Brin story, I believe, right?
Yes, it's in 3 parts. It's pretty long, and it was very challenging because during I guess you would call the narration part, he does a lot of switching back and forth between first person of the person who's thinking and just regular narration. So I'd have to stop and say, oh my gosh, this is in this person's head. I have to change my voice now so you can tell what's going on. Okay. But it was fun. I'd never read one of his stories, so now I'm going to have to look for some more of them.
Yeah, he's Jesse's favorite.
Oh, yeah?
You're mean.
One of our most famous reviews is his review of Starship. No, what was it called?
Startide Rising.
That's it, Startide Rising, which he had little regard for.
Tore it to shreds, huh?
Well, I like the ideas. I don't like the way he puts together a story. It's very passive. And even I was listening to the first part of the 3 parts of the one you're reading, and it's again very passively put together. So there's a lot of dialogue of dolphins and humans sitting around talking to each other, and then nothing happening on stage.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. Yeah, there's a lot of talking, a lot of explaining things, although it's interesting.
As you well know, my friend Joe, who lives in the ocean.
Yeah, when they find out that what that mysterious sound is, there's a lot of explication back and forth. I hadn't thought of it that way, but what they find was so interesting that it didn't occur to me that that's what they were doing, because I was very interested in what the heck was going on. And then also at the very end, when I suddenly got to that point and said, well, wait, they're being faced with a classic choice. And I was pretty worried about what the author was going to have them do, because a lot of times science fiction authors like to go off the hook, from my point of view. So I liked it.
That's good.
I really like his ideas, and I just don't like the way he puts together a story.
Yeah.
I haven't read a whole lot of David Brin, but I have read The River of Time is a short story collection. And I enjoyed that, and I read Sundiver, and I enjoyed that. And Sundiver's on audio somewhere too now.
Yeah, it's recorded books as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Once again, I'm making notes, which is what I do every time I listen to you guys. I'm constantly, wait, I can't listen while I'm driving. I have to make notes.
You have to make notes about your own stuff now. You can say, boy, that's so much good information.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got
my family.
Oops, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay, I've got a quick new arrival to go through, if that's all right. We just got a few from Penguin Audio. It's kind of a surprise for me. We talked about Stephen King last week, but they sent... Stephen King wrote a book called Different Seasons. Way back when, it was in the, Salem's Lot era, The Shining, Salem's Lot. Yeah, that era. And we were talking about, that was one of Brian's favorite parts of his career anyway. But they re-released in 4 audiobooks the 4 novellas from Different Seasons. All read by Frank Muller, who's one of my all-time favorite narrators, who is unfortunately no longer with us as of 2008. But the breathing method, and the body, and apt pupil, and the Shawshank Redemption.
All movies now, I think.
I think 3 of them. I don't think the breathing method is it?
I don't know.
Yeah, so 3 of the 4 are movies. So we've got those, and they're all about, between 3 and 6 hours each.
Wow. And
then we got one called Daemon, or it's Daemon, by Daniel Suarez, and Daemon, Daemon, is a computer process, on the internet. So it's a thriller about, it looks like a guy who was into the program and stuff on the internet, and he dies, and one of the programs he left behind noticed that he died, and then started unleashing some bad stuff on the internet.
Cool.
So I'm not sure what the threat is going to be. Is it going to be, people losing their email?
No!
The ultimate evil, I think.
Could podcasts be shut down forever?
No!
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, no, that would be...
But anyway, yeah, it's, in real life, it says here, power grids and stuff like that. But why would someone put their power grid on the internet? If you were the power grid provider. I know that they do it in real life, but why?
I was going to say, people make such stupid decisions like that all the time, so...
Yeah. Because, it's just not a good idea to put your nuclear plant on the internet so that you can run it from your house. I don't see any other reason for it.
So you could shut it down from your house?
Yeah, that's
when it's exploding?
Yeah.
Usually,
Homer Simpson did it.
Yeah. Usually there's a guy or, a person there that can, flip that switch, between the donuts.
That's right, Lenny or Carl.
That's
always there to take over. Sorry, I know way too much about The Simpsons.
Heck yeah. Hey, there's one other thing I wanted to make sure I brought up this week, and that is the big Microsoft Zune thing that happened over the holidays. You guys hear about that?
Oh, yes.
Did you hear about that, Jesse?
All I heard about was the giveaway from Audible.
Oh, no.
Because of the Zune.
No, the Microsoft Zune, apparently all of their 30 gig models crashed over the holiday.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't it New Year's Eve? And then they said, or something like that, and they said, oh, it'll be okay on New Year's. It's a coding error.
It's a coding error, right.
Yeah, it's the way we set the code up, but it'll be fine on New Year's.
It said it was the story that I have from the Wall Street Journal says, leap year trips Zune in black eye for Microsoft. So, because of the leap year or whatever, they all crashed for a day. You
know what that is? That's DRM, actually.
That is exactly right. That's the point I wanted to make. It's
okay, Jesse, you're right. I take it all back. Every bit of it.
I've been blaming you for DRM for years. Even before you were podcasting.
Yeah.
I've been blaming
we can look at it even from a wider perspective. I mean, Microsoft Vista and, people slam Microsoft all the time. But for me, a person who uses it in his job and everything, we're 100% Microsoft where I work. And the problem is that the software has become so complex, needlessly, and I'm talking about Microsoft Office through their operating systems, through everything. It is complex, it's buggy because it's complex, and it's needlessly complex. And the Zune is an example. I mean, why would it crash on this coding error that has to do with the date, unless there was some needless connection between the date and whatever the heck it was doing. You know?
Yeah.
It needs to be. I remember, who was it? Well, Bill Gates used to talk about the telephone and how, hey, when we pick up a telephone, we expect it to work, and there's no reason at all why a computer can't be that reliable.
Yeah.
Well, it's impossible with the complexity they've put in their stuff. And that's my rant over.
We tend not to believe in depending all on one kind of software. Of course, we're more free. We're in graphics. But, I like InDesign, but without Quark, InDesign is never going to be as good as it is, and we have to use both anyway. Or, various web design things or whatever. So I just think that all one thing is not good.
Right. Well, you, in graphics and stuff, isn't Apple the way to go there? Do you guys use the Macs?
Yeah, exactly. Even back when no one ever would use a Mac, it was always 95% of the Mac users were graphic artists.
I'm still going with Amiga. Still
You rebel.
I'm hacking away at my Commodore 64, hooking up my nuclear plant to it.
There we go.
Yeah. So.
Have you... I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you go right ahead.
I was going to say, I had something to tell y'all about when you're done with your new releases.
That's it. Those are the ones I had.
Oh,
It came in.
Okay.
And recent arrivals or new releases?
Those are recent arrivals.
Yeah. Okay, so put in your claims now, Julie.
Let me think. Well, I would pick Stephen King, except I'm terrified to listen to Stephen King because I can't skip anything,
Oh, yeah.
I like to be able to gloss over things that are scary. Or disgusting, and with him you get both.
Right.
But, but what I was going to say, and this would sound like it's really far out there, but Jekyll and Hyde from Librivox is all read by one person, Scott, and it's a good reader, Scott. So, and it's pretty short.
No, wait a minute.
In case you think I don't listen, I do, and I pay attention. But the thing is that Craftlit, which is a weird-sounding vehicle to talk about here, but Heather at Craftlit has just begun it. And the great thing about her, if you like to think about the story in a different way, is she's an English teacher. And so she'll kind of take you through, and look at these themes, and did you notice that this guy, even though he disapproves, and it's this kind of atmosphere, he's always still a friend. That's unusual. So what's Stevenson doing with that? And I like that kind of explication for a story I already know. So I just thought I'd mention it because Jekyll and Hyde's a classic, and another one that a lot of people don't read because they think they know it from the movies.
Scott, if you decide to do that one, do a review of the Librivox one, I'll do the one that just arrived in the mail from Wayne June.
Oh.
And then we can have a battle of the...
I will do it. What is the name of the...
Oh, it's called Craftlit.
Craftlit.
I'll send you the link, and if you...
I will listen to it, and I will review it, and it'll be great.
Yeah,
you're already
wow,
saying
what a guy.
Wow.
If you don't care about crafts at all, and sometimes she gets really into crafts, and so I'll skip that section. You just zoom ahead a little.
Sure.
So, yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
So.
I watched another version of Beowulf last night, movie.
You watched it?
Yeah, another movie version.
Oh.
How old is it?
Pretty new, very new. It's
Oh.
called Beowulf and Grendel, so it only deals with the first half of the poem, I guess. Filmed in Iceland.
Oh, I think I heard of this.
And I quite liked it. It's very different. And I was kind of surprised how much I enjoyed it. It's got mostly a Scandinavian or Scandinavian-esque cast. It's in English, but it basically goes with the idea that Grendel's a troll, right? Some sort of outcast, semi-human creature, and that he's been wronged by the Hrothgar's clan or whatever, the Danes. And it's sort of a variation on the standard Beowulf, but visually very, very interesting because it's set in Iceland. Definitely Iceland. I was thinking, where did they film this? It must be Iceland. Yep, it's Iceland.
Or the moon, right?
Yeah, like
Doesn't Iceland kind of look like the moon?
Very few trees, very green, very.
Oh, okay.
It's like Ireland on steroids, you know.
Oh, I never think of it as green, so okay.
Oh yeah. Actually, that's when I was a kid. That's what I think my uncle told me is Iceland and Greenland should have their names swapped because Greenland is really the it's the false advertising, whereas Iceland is
right.
is
Come settle.
word advertising. To try to trick you to go to the wrong place. I said, what? Yep. Although Greenland actually was green at one point too, so. And
that's what I always heard. Then it changed, so.
Well, it still can be green in the summer. Parts of it, anyways. The 3 weeks of summer or whatever. We're gonna get all the Greenland listeners upset.
Have any of you seen The Fall?
No, but one of my friends is dying to see it, and I keep looking at it and saying, it's very beautiful, and I think I'm going to hate it. Well,
the reason I ask is because it has such an extensive fantasy element in, it's basically, it's a hospital in,
Los Angeles or something, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in Hollywood, and it's near the, it's the silent movie era. And there's the little girl who's broken her arm by falling down, and she's not really that sick otherwise, so she gets to wander around the hospital, and she comes across a guy, Lee Pace from Pushing Daisies, speaking of fantasy, and he is there for, you discover why he's there and what's wrong as you go along, but he starts telling her this very fantastic story in serial form, and it is amazingly fantastic looking with the costuming, and they also went all over the world to film it. I was surprised to see that at the end. But in the process, you start to see how he's talking, but she's imagining. For instance, in the example that I can give easily is she tells him about a friend of hers who's an Indian, so he puts an Indian into the story, and she's thinking from India,
right,
and the rich tapestry of their lives and everything, and he's talking about, and then they went into his wigwam and took his squaw.
Right.
So that was a nice juxtaposition. But the reason I was asking is because the fantasy element was so interesting to watch and kind of hard to keep up with for me. And the regular story was kind of very straightforward and one-dimensional. I was really surprised.
So what's the review?
Wrong.
Positive or negative? It sounds good, and then you slammed it at the end.
Well, I would say 3 out of 4 stars. It's not a bad, straightforward message. Yeah, it's kind of like when Roger Ebert goes, well, it's worth seeing. It could have been better. Okay. It's not a bad, straightforward message. It's a very good one, but
it's beautiful to look at, right?
Oh my gosh, and the way that story is told is very interesting. especially since things start shifting around and you suddenly go, wait a minute, I recognize that person. I've seen them at the hospital somewhere. Because she's imagining it.
Yeah, it looked really beautiful. The trailer made it look...
it's gorgeous.
You know, just stunning.
Yeah, it is. And it's challenging to keep up with, I think, for the fantasy part. Because that story doesn't go the way you think it should. It's not as predictable as it could be. So
well,
that's why
you're making predictable sound good.
Well, in some ways, I could have preferred the story to go a different way, but that's the point. Yeah, it's not comforting.
Oh, good. I like my shit disturbed.
Yeah, you're gonna love toward the end. You're gonna love it, man.
Okay, all right.
Like, how are they doing this? This is wrong. so you'll love it.
Okay, good. Now I'm looking forward.
Yeah, that's the first I've heard of that movie, so very cool.
It came out this year, I think early, something like that, or late last year. And
It got
I've seen a lot of trailers for it, but not actually watched it yet.
And the critics loved it. I mean, they loved it. And then I wouldn't have really... I put it on my list. I wouldn't have pursued it, but one of my daughters who's studying film said, wow, it blew my mind. So... we watched it.
Hey, you know, you pointed me once to Roger Ebert's blog, which I've really enjoyed since you did that. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Yeah,
His journal.
Yeah, and it's a great source of info. Really interesting.
Yeah.
But he kind of did an end of the year thing, saying, "Hey, here's the best stuff at the end of the year." And you know, I like documentaries, so I picked up, from Netflix, Encounters at the End of the World.
Is that the one you told me about, Scott?
I think so. Yeah, but it was really, really excellent. It's a documentary in Antarctica, but it's not really about the science, you know, and the penguins and stuff, which is normally what a documentary in Antarctica is.
Yeah.
It's about the people that are doing that science and that live there. You know, it's like, you know, how does a person end up in Antarctica? And it ends up being a profile of several different people that are all, you know, very interesting, not your average folks.
That does sound good.
It really is good. Yeah. And it says for Roger Ebert on it. You know.
Really?
Yeah.
No wonder he liked it. No, wait. Did I say that or think it? Yeah.
Anyway, it is really excellent. I watched it twice. Liked it so much. Yeah.
Okay. It's on my list. See, I told you I take notes. It's on my list.
Yeah, he wrote a list of, you know, Roger Ebert, you know, the stuff that he likes. And I want to get through all those documentaries, but, you know, some of them are hard to find.
Yeah, he gets everything.
Yeah.
And in Chicago, of course, they have everything.
Right,
right. I've since learned, since that's where my daughter goes to school, I've learned it's really the center of the world. We didn't know it, but it is.
Yes, so. I am in the opposite of the center of the world. What could that be?
That's right. My sister lives in Utah. I know what you mean.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
One thing that I learned this in the holiday season, Harlan Ellison... There was a documentary film called Dreams with Sharp Teeth, and it kind of went on tour, you know, city to city, but, you know, I never had an opportunity to watch it. But they're going to release it on DVD in May.
Good.
It's called Dreams with Sharp Teeth.
It's been a while since it came out.
Yeah, almost 2 years. So.
And what is it?
It's a profile of Harlan Ellison. A documentary film called Dreams with Sharp Teeth.
That would have to be interesting because he's such a crazy guy.
He is. He's very interesting.
He's going to get you for that. That's slander.
Yes, he will. I have. No, I shouldn't have said that. Yeah. Cut that out, please.
If you have not heard his audiobooks, he is really remarkable.
He's an amazing reader.
Yeah, he won an audio award for narration for a book that wasn't his.
I haven't.
Yeah, it was City of Darkness by Ben Bova.
Which is actually just a mediocre book, but he does a really good job with it.
Yeah, a remarkable job. And he read A Wizard of Earthsea by Ursula K. LeGuin. Is that how you pronounce LeGuin?
I think so.
That's how I say it.
All right. Somebody I ran into pronounced it LeGuin. And I was not sure if that was
right. They must have been French or something. LeGuin.
LeGuin.
So
it's like trying to say Neil Gaiman's name. Neil Gaiman.
Yeah. Neil Gaiman?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if you haven't heard it.
Yeah, I guess so.
Right. But he's remarkable, and he's got 2 collections out on audio. They're both called Voice from the Edge. One of them is subtitled Midnight at the Sunken Cathedral, and the other one is subtitled I Have No Mouth But I Must Scream. And I understand that Blackstone will be releasing a 3rd collection by him, and then re-releasing 1 and 2, but I'm not sure what the schedule is for that.
That'll be good.
So could I have one that one of you guys has already heard? Nobody I know I can't ask for it with Jesse here, but Scott, I'm going to email you later.
Oh, all right, email me later. You bet. So hopefully those will come in this year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now I'm interested because I enjoy the way authors read. Generally, I enjoy the way authors read their own work.
Yeah,
just to hear the emphasis.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Me and Jesse talked about that one time in a podcast.
I know.
Yes.
I knew which alliance I was signing up with on this one.
Right. I liked, like Arthur C. Clarke when he reads. I think, it's kind of a treasure to have that.
Yes. The Ray Bradbury Martian Chronicles is great that way. And I haven't finished it because I got distracted and I've already heard, I know the stories practically by heart. So I probably need to go through and just listen to his commentary because before and after each one, he talks about the story. Why did I write it? What was I thinking? What was I exploring here?
Yeah.
How did I sell it?
I love it.
It's really interesting.
I mean, they should always do that.
If you want to stick to that line, you line up against me. I have to throw down some powerful evidence against you both on author-read stuff.
I said generally. I softened it.
Yeah, but this one will pull you back over to my side. There's a very good book called IBM and the Holocaust. It's a nonfiction book about how IBM was heavily involved in allowing or helping the Nazis do the Holocaust by using some machines that were like pre-computers. They're pre-computer machines for counting, and they were they're originally designed for doing statistical analysis of modern nationalist countries. And throughout World War II, IBM was still sending its, it actually made a special division in Germany just to help keep the machines going, and they were definitely being used for the Holocaust, and so that's really bad, right? Great book, but very informative, but the reader is the author, and he's not good as a reader because he's very nasal and very dry, and he tries to be dramatic, and that doesn't, it's already dramatic, so you don't need that. Give that one a shot if you think it's a good book.
No, I've heard.
Oops, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was going to say that's one reason I decided not to check. I think it was Animal Vegetable Miracle, which is a food book, out of the library from the audio version, because so many people, I think it was on Amazon where I saw these reviews, said, whoa, if the author could quit using that sing-song voice, she's putting me to sleep.
Oh, boy.
So it has to be the right one. But if you get the right one, then you get those moments of emphasis that you wouldn't have noticed, like in the Graveyard book. Every time he's talking about, so-and-so, and then he'll tell what's on their tombstone or put special emphasis behind stuff. That's something that the author paid attention to that somebody else might not have.
Yeah. Well, Neil Gaiman, you can't use him as the example because he's really special.
I'm sorry. Was he not an author reading his own work? Let me just see if I could use that as an example. I think I can. One for my side.
How about bring out the big guns? What about Neuromancer by William Gibson?
Yeah, fine. Hit me right.
Because he is not, stellar.
No, but he's very good for that. Because it's the way he talks.
Right.
Right. He talks.
Oh, he writes like he talks.
Yeah. So it's like Tony, right? You know, it'd be like me trying to read Tony Smith's script. It wouldn't sound right.
Yeah, love. It's a cracking good story.
Tony, man.
His emails. That's pretty good, though.
Yeah. I'm working on it.
He writes his emails exactly like he talks. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
All right.
So I wanted to talk about my really crappy news that sort of ruined 2008 or 2009, depending on whether it's a capper or a beginning. On, I guess, New Year's morning, I read in an email that Donald Westlake was dead. Donald Westlake's one of my favorite, maybe my favorite author. And he was 75 years old, and it was sort of a big surprise. But I for like the last couple of summers, I've been worrying to all the people who also like Westlake. I say, you know, he's getting really old. Is he gonna be around for a couple more years? I want more books.
Right.
Was he prolific?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
God, yeah, amazingly prolific. More than 100 books.
But to the end, I mean, was he writing pretty good stuff? He was
slowing down, but still a couple books a year.
And they were pretty good.
I think generally they were. His Richard Stark novels, the last 3 of them have been fairly weak. But that's not that unusual in that he would sort of do. I mean, they were weak compared to other ones in his series, but not weak books.
Still good.
Yeah. I mean, they're still worth listening to and reading. And
well, tell us about.
I was just curious.
Tell us about Richard Stark, because he wrote all about one character under that pseudonym.
Two characters. One character, and then there was a spin-off book based on one of the characters in there. Richard Stark, I guess he wrote about 27 books, and when he started, nobody knew that he was also Donald Westlake. And in 1963, I think, was the first book. And it was basically a heist novel where the bad guy is really bad, and but also very compelling. He's not telling the story, but we're very tight over his shoulder, seeing the story unfold. He's determined, and it's powerfully written. And at the end of the book, when he finished writing it, he gave it the standard ending, which is, you know, the bad guy doesn't get away with it. And then when he handed that in, they said, "Wow, this is a really great book. Can we have another one?" He says, "Well, in that case, he's got to get away with it, doesn't he?" So, in the entire series, he doesn't always, you know, get the money. In fact, most of the time, he doesn't get the money, at least all of it, or at least completely. So one book he'd get the money, and the next one he's already out of money again. He's got to, you know, go after another heist. And there's been 24 books in that series, and then 3 spin-off ones as well. And there's a huge 20-year gap in between some of them.
Is there one that you would recommend to start with, other than trying to find which is the first one?
Yeah, the first one actually is the weakest, I think. It's called The Hunter, and they've turned that into 3 different movies. You've probably seen one of them or more of them.
Which would you recommend then, if someone was going to, like, just any random person was going to just, you know, pick one up and start reading?
Yeah. Well, I would probably recommend the one I started with, but that's not going to be that easy. Because a lot of them are out of print because they're of the, you know, when they came out. They're coming back into print, but if you could have a giant library and, you know, choose.
In Dallas, we do.
I would start with the Sour Lemon Score, which is a good title. And you don't really have to read them in order, because he actually sort of loses control of the continuity a little bit. Like, one of the characters who is dead in one book is alive in another book later on. But I mean, he's fairly good with the continuity. But I think he just, either he forgot that he killed him off, or he didn't care, or just wanted to bring that character back for some reason. I'm not sure. But yeah, I actually discovered the book in another book. It starts with Lawrence Block. Lawrence Block and Donald Westlake are basically two sides of the same coin of writing. They're both New York writers writing crime novels and comedy crime novels in New York about basically people in New York. And I started off on Lawrence Block. I was in the not a used bookstore, I was in a new bookstore, and I saw some audiobooks on sale, discounted, back in the early 90s, I guess it was. And I said, on sale, discounted? Why? I gotta give these a try. Just 2 cassette audiobook versions of a couple of Lawrence Block burglar books. And I was reading through, listening to one of them, and one of the characters started reading a book while he's sitting in his store, just at the beginning of the book, right? He's reading a book, and the book sounded fascinating, sounded really cool, and I thought, wow, I'd love to read that book. I wonder if it's real. And so I looked around, and I found, yeah, it is real. That book exists. And I went into the bookstore, and I bought that book based on the character's recommendation of the book.
What a wonderful way to do an homage to someone.
I know. It was pretty amazing. And, Donald Westlake and Lawrence Block are very good friends. They actually wrote a couple books together, and under pseudonyms, they complemented each other's books while they're both writing pseudonymous novels, and that was pretty cool. But I learned that long after. And what's good about the Parker books is basically they're very gritty crime heist stories that are incredibly surprising. Like a lot of basically you never know where a Westlake book's going to begin or end. They always end in a place where you wouldn't expect, but is completely logical. I was reading some of the tributes. A lot of people are writing tributes about him right now, and some of the people were saying, he's a writer's writer. All the writers who like writing, who think of themselves as writers first before anything else, they love Westlake. And I got a really nice compliment on one of my reviews. I reviewed a Spider Robinson a book, and I got a nice compliment on the review saying, boy, I've never read a review that actually noticed this fact about the book, this Spider Robinson book, that it's basically an homage to Donald Westlake. And
Score.
Yeah, so I was really impressed, and then I later found out that person who emailed me might have something to do with the author too. So,
oh man,
yeah, that was pretty cool.
Oh yeah,
yeah, he's an awesome writer, and you can just pick up any book of Donald Westlake's, and even the sort of the weaker novels, in that it doesn't have the slam bang, oh my god, this is so good, are still amazingly well written and very rereadable. The couple of books I really liked, I guess, were 1990s books. One was called The Hook, and that's about two writers who were old friends, sort of meeting each other 20 years after the beginnings of their career, and one of them is on the way up and one of them is on the way down. The one who's on the way up is suffering from writer's block, and the one who's on the way down can't get his books published anymore because his name is in the computers, and every computer is telling the publishers that his last book sold a little less than his previous book, and that means his next book is only going to get half the orders that the previous one. It's basically suffering from the Amazon problem, you can only sell so many copies if your last book sold so many copies. So if you have one bad novel or one novel that doesn't do very well, then your next novel's only going to get half the orders. Just even if it's a popular novel and they sell it out, they won't reorder because they know it only will sell half as much. And so it's a thriller based on this idea. And of course, the two authors get together and work together, but it leads to disaster.
What's the name of that one?
It's called The Hook.
The Hook. Because I think I've read that.
It's a great book.
Could you have sent me that one?
Possibly. I'm always recommending Westlake. And the other one that's I think everyone is basically praising as his best independent novel, not in a series, is around the same time, and it's called The Axe. And it's I think I understand why people find this one very compelling, because it's about people getting downsized out of their job. So a guy's downsized out of his job, and he discovers that the industry he's in is, becoming less and less popular. It's harder and harder to get a job in it, and so he applies for many jobs, and he keeps getting turned down by people who are equally as qualified as him, but maybe more attractive. Something like that. And so he's determined to get a job and, feed his family and do all the things necessary to stay alive, but he can't retrain. He's 48 years old, something like that. He doesn't think he has any other option. So he comes up with a unique solution. He advertises for a job just like he has, right? And he takes all the resumes and he systematically goes around killing all the competitors to his career so that he has a better chance. And it's utterly compelling because you get sucked in, right? You really feel for the guy, and yet he's not a psycho, right? He's very cold and collected, and he realizes this is probably not ideally moral and all that stuff. But
of course, he only gets the people who are like him who are desperate for jobs.
Or the ones in the market, right?
Yeah, exactly. Anybody who's gainfully employed and happy, he doesn't get.
And younger, right? And younger.
Right.
All the people who possibly put him out of work.
Yeah.
So, very,
Sounds good,
very, yeah. And he's written all sorts of stuff. He's written a lot of fantasy
really?
in novel form. So one of the ones I read in paper book is called Humans, and that's about a whole bunch of people all over the world, and they all come together in that it's God's plan is to end the world, but God is very passive. He's not like going to put his hand in on the world. So what he's setting up a whole bunch of people by giving them dreams and such, so that they all end up working to end the world. He sends an angel down to Earth to guide who can turn into, to take human form and to turn into anybody, and sort of put a bee in someone's bonnet about something, and then that person will go on to the next person and influence, and you can see like there's a new nuclear reactor coming online, and it
sounds like the other guy, not God to me, but okay.
No, it's definitely God. It's definitely God, because God's just tired of the world. He said, it's God's plan. The end of the world is coming, and it's not that we don't actually see a lot from God's point of view, but it's just so surprising and interesting, and
it makes me think, and I know this is just a small element that you're describing, it makes me think of The Stand.
It's absolutely nothing like The Stand, though.
Yeah, but the dreams and the influencing people to do stuff or go places. So
yeah, it is. It's like that. Like it follows a similar premise, I guess, but the structure is completely different. And he pulls it off, and it's not even like number one on the list, but that's an example of a good book that he wrote that it just you aren't expecting. And he wrote under maybe 13 different pseudonyms, something like that.
Heavens to Betsy.
And pretty late in his career, too. Like, people generally stop using pseudonyms after, I guess, the 1960s, after, you know, the paperbacks became less popular. When, you know, he was writing... After the 1950s, he dropped a lot of his pseudonyms, and Richard Stark he kept, and then, but, you know, he has a contract with a, you know, Random House or whatever to do a book a year or 2 books a year. That's not enough. He's got more books in him, so he'd come up with some other pseudonym like Tucker Coe or Judson Jackson Carmichael, or there's one pair of books written by someone named Samuel Holt, and Samuel Holt is also the name of the character in them. So you're supposed to think that, you know, this is a guy's true story, but of course he's not, because it's basically, it was like a really good premise. I thought it would make a great TV show. The Samuel Holt books are about an ex-actor who was on a television show sort of like Magnum P.I., something like that, set in Los Angeles, where he was a college professor who solves crimes. I guess sort of like a cross between Magnum P.I. and Murder, She Wrote, or something like that. And now, after his career is over on the television, he's basically typecast and can't get work. But he has some... the first novel's... one of his, I think his agent gets in trouble with some terrorists, and he has to sort of become Magnum P.I. or whatever it is again.
Yeah, from what he learned from the TV show.
Yeah,
right?
Basically.
Yeah.
They're all like, there's a heist set in motion. It's like a clockwork plot, uncurling or ticking away, and just the way he puts a sentence together and a turn of phrase, it's awesome. He's a great writer. Was a great writer.
Good. What about on audio? Do you have any audio recommendations?
I just made an audio page for him. Yeah, lots of them.
Okay, I was looking on Audible, and he's got a hard case crime title as Richard Stark and a hard case crime title as Westlake.
Yeah, the hard case crime as Richard Stark is actually one of his spin-offs books. It's called Lemons Never Lie, and that's a good book. It's about another actor. This time he's a stage actor who doesn't like movies, so he doesn't want to work in the movies. He's too good for the movies, and he makes his living by pulling off heists in between summer stock, doing theater in the summer. So in that one, I think it's set right after the events of another Parker novel that he's in. Grofield is the name of the character, and he's a less amoral, more I'm doing it for the money, and I'll try not to do too much damage to the people around me than Parker is. But he's it's a good listen. I think that one's set in Mexico. There's actually 3 Grofield novels. The other one I just did a review of. Somebody Owes Me Money. Is that the one you were thinking?
Yep.
Yeah. Somebody Owes Me Money is very, very... I could recommend that one very highly. It's a 1960s novel about a taxi driver who gets stiffed on a fare, but he gets a tip instead, a tip on a racehorse. And when he loses the... when he puts the money down on the horse, he ends up well ahead, to win $600 or something, which is a lot of money, I guess, back then in the 1960s. And and so he goes to collect from his bookie, but his bookie's dead. Somebody's killed him. And so he figures somebody owes him money. Whoever killed him owes him money, or someone else. And it's, vintage 1960s caper in New York.
Great.
Also, did either of you listen to Maria Electric's, I guess is the podcast, but Maureen O'Brien's reading of The Risk Profession?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a terrific mystery.
Yeah, I guess it was a short story or a novella or something, because it was in 3 parts, but...
hour, 24 minutes.
Yeah. Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. I guess it's on the page.
Yeah,
but I thought it was good. I liked the way she read it, and it was a good kind of a reintroduction to me. I'm sure I've read some of his stuff, but I listened to that and then heard he died and went, I've got to look for more. So
he's awesome. He's awesome. Actually, that story's in another audiobook on the page there. It's also out of print, though. It's called Tomorrow's Crimes, which is all of Westlake's science fiction from the 1950s and 60s. And that includes an abridged novel and 3 or 4 short stories, including The Risk Profession. The original reader for that is excellent, too. Theodore Bikel, the movie actor.
Yeah, I've heard that
voice.
One. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yep.
Writing. And Anarchaos, the novel, is his only science fiction novel. It's set on a world in which the government is anarchy. So you're not allowed to, there is no government, basically. You do anything you want to anyone at any time. And, of course, that doesn't work too well for the main character, who I believe he loses his eye right away, and then he loses a hand. He keeps losing body parts as the story goes on. The other kind of novel that he wrote that a lot of people really like are called his pigeon novels. No, not his pigeon novels. His uncle or nephew novels. Nephew novels. The nephew novels are like they're sort of a hapless character, sort of a young man who is not really he's not a hard case. He's not a tough guy, but one of his uncles or one of his relatives is in the mob, and for some reason or other, some criminals are after him, and so it's like a man on the run sort of story. And he's got about 5 or 6 of those. One of them is called The Fugitive Pigeon, and that is great little story, and there's a bunch of other ones. I mean, in a way, Somebody Owes Me Money is a nephew story as well. He wrote a novel called Smoke, which is it's kind of like a Bernie Rodenbar burglar book, but it's a retelling of the Ring of Gaiji story. So he, the character in that one, finds a magic ring that can turn him invisible, and now he's, not only is he a burglar, now he's a burglar that can become invisible.
What an inventive, original thinker he must have been to go ahead and just say, I'm going to write all these with these fantastic elements also. It's not what you find usually.
It's fairly rare. He doesn't have, fantastic elements in a lot of them. I'm sort of bringing up, the ones that have, but he's written so many books that
I'm just thinking, though, because I was sitting here and I was thinking of, in a sense, the very convoluted plots that you don't know where they're going make me think of, Ross Thomas, who's a favorite of mine. Or then I was thinking, well, then there's even Dick Francis, who had a lot of, he always wrote about the same essential character with a different name and different profession, but he would kind of change up everything that he was doing so it was still interesting, even though there was always a horse somewhere. And but I was thinking, even those people didn't stop and go, but what if it was on the moon? But what if he had an invisible ring? So it indicates that he also was reading all kinds of stuff to influence him.
Yeah.
Between old legends and history and, fantasy or science fiction. So
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a writing machine, and he, I should probably post some interviews with him. He's a really funny guy, and a lot of people will know him from. He did a lot of work in Hollywood on screenplays and stuff like that. Created a television show, and there's going to be a new in this. I think springtime. There's going to be a graphic novel or series of comic books based on his Parker books. I don't know if that'll be any good. I don't really care so much about his... I mean, there's a lot of movies based on his novels. Robert Redford was in a movie of one of his Dortmunder books, and those I didn't mention the Dortmunder books, but basically they're a comedic version of the Parker books. So they're heist novels, but with the character who's not out to kill anybody, trying to avoid killing anybody at all costs, basically. And so he has a lot more difficulty getting the jobs done because he's got a moral center.
A moral code.
Yeah.
Well, also, it sounds like he's, because you said that, and I suddenly started thinking back, which I'm sorry to talk about giving up age, but to like the 60s and 70s, and I was thinking, I think there were a variety of movies based on his stuff, in the sense of he was kind of like the Elmore Leonard of that time, where Hollywood suddenly went, oh my gosh, look at this mind we can have for story ideas.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
there's some... if you start looking for Westlake projects on film, you'll find maybe a dozen movies or something like that in various languages. I just watched one based on... I have a book called Enough, which includes 2 stories. It's a paper book, but it includes 2 stories. One's called A Travesty, and that's about a really good story about a film reviewer who accidentally kills his girlfriend, but the private investigator stumbles over the fact that he killed her, and now he's blackmailing the film reviewer. It's like a local television reviewer for a New York television station, so he reviews movies and on the evening news, but he's being blackmailed at the same time, and yet he's guilty in that he killed her and he covered it up, but he's not a bad guy, and he didn't do it on purpose. Mm-hmm. But he's just sort of keeps digging himself in, and that was done very well as a film, a television movie starring William H. Macy. That's called A Slight Case of Murder. Great movie, one of the rare good movies based on a Westlake story. The other one was done as a French film, also from Enough. It's called Ordo, and that's about a sailor who gets involved in a romantic relationship with someone he probably shouldn't. The other one that sort of struck me, I was watching this new show called My Own Worst Enemy. Have anybody seen that?
I've heard of it, but is that on regular TV or cable?
I think it's regular TV. I'm not
100%
sure, but it's sort of a spy story, and it sort of had elements that reminded me of a book of his called Money for Nothing, which is about a guy who gets who's been getting checks in the mail from nowhere. He's been getting $1,000 in the bank, $1,000 check in the mail for years, and he doesn't know why. He couldn't figure out why, and sort of stopped trying to figure out why because it might stop years ago. But now, one day, he's sitting on a park bench having his lunch, and the man sits down beside him and he says, "You are now active." And he's been mistaken as a sleeper agent for a foreign government. Somehow his name got mixed up on their rolls, and they're insistent that he is a spy for them. And they're not going to take his. I'm not, because he's been cashing the checks.
Not taking no for an answer.
That's right. He's been cashing the checks for 20 years, so he's definitely going to have to do the job.
Bummer.
Yeah. So Donald Westlake's dead, and it sucks.
Yep.
I comfort myself in the fact that I've got about 50 more books to read.
Do you reread books?
I do, but not when I have another option.
Oh, no, I know. I just was going to say, but then you have all those books to reread.
I know, but life is too short. Life is too short. If I read another book based on the same, by the same author, then I'll be...
Well, yeah, but when those 15 are gone, that's all I'm saying.
No, 50, 50.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said 15. Then never mind.
50, I believe. I've read about half of Westlake stuff.
You slacker.
I know.
50.
Well, I'm sort of savoring them because now that he's gone, I won't have as much chance to get more. There's one more. I just discovered there's a new release of a hard case crime coming. It's called The Cutie, but it's actually just a book I've already got 2 copies of under 2 different names. They, a lot of the times they would be republished 20 years later under a new title.
Huh.
So.
Oh, that's interesting.
I've already read it.
Yeah. Gotcha.
I do reread them. I'll admit I do reread Westlake when I get a new audio version or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's like I'm very, very slowly listening to Lord Valentine's Castle.
Wow.
Robert Silverberg.
Cool.
I didn't realize how long the book was till I saw 19 hours. Okay.
That's long for that back then.
Yeah, but I love that book so much. But it's like you, where I have all this new stuff that distracts me from it. But in between, I'll go and listen to some more and think, that's just one of the greatest books ever.
Mm-hmm. Silverberg's a great writer.
Yeah, and that book, of all the other ones he ever wrote about that Majapur, that's really the best one. I mean, he carried it on with some sequels, but for me, they didn't matter as much.
Yeah.
Because it's like the ultimate quest discovering unique forms of life that there could be. He was so inventive.
Yeah. Actually, Silverberg is a contemporary of Westlake and Bloch. They all three worked with the same publishers back in the 60s, writing sex books, lesbian novels or...
you know everything. How do you know all this?
Years of research.
I comfort myself with the fact that you never heard of, what is it? It Happened One Night.
I've heard the title, but I haven't watched it yet. So,
yeah.
But your recommendation makes it high on my list of things to get.
But yeah, that's the only thing where I could say I actually knew something Jesse didn't already have some bit of information about.
I'm not married and I don't have any kids, so I have more time for research.
This has been the SFF Audio Podcast. Please join us at www.sffaudio.com.